My name is Marion Blake, and until 3 weeks ago, I believed loyalty still meant something in my family. For 6 years, I managed the Blakewood apartments collecting rent, fixing pipes, helping elderly tenants carry groceries. My reward was discounted rent for a small unit on the third floor. It wasn't glamorous, but it was home. That end of the morning, my sister Sabrina arrived with a stack of folders and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Business is business," she said, sliding a new lease across my kitchen table. The number printed at the bottom made my stomach drop. $7,100. My old rent was $2,350. I laughed at first, thinking it was a mistake. Sabrina didn't laugh back. Our parents agreed. She added, "If you can't afford it, someone else will." "We're repositioning the building." Repositioning, a word developers use right before evicting every tenant who didn't fit their profit margins. Sab. Families live here, seniors, veterans, people who've been here 20 years. And that's the problem, she snapped. They're dead weight. You can either support the upgrade or get out of the way. When I called my parents, they didn't just side with Sabrina, they acted like I was being dramatic. "Marion, be reasonable." Dad sighed. "Your sister understands real estate. Don't make this difficult." Make this difficult? I had poured years of my life into this building, into this family, only to learn my loyalty meant less than the numbers on Sabrina's spreadsheet. That was the day I realized something chilling. My family didn't betray me by accident. They planned it, and they were only getting started. I didn't have to wait long to find out what Sabrina was really after. 3 days after she delivered the rent bomb, I overheard her in the management office. The door wasn't fully closed, and her voice sharp, clipped, dripping with ambition carried into the hallway. "Apex Development is ready," she said. "They just need occupancy below 50% before they sign." My breath hitched. Apex Development. The company known for bulldozing communities and replacing them with glass towers and valet parking. "You'll get your commission in full," Sabrina continued. "But we need these tenants out. All of them." I felt my jaw tighten. All of them. Families who'd lived here for decades. Mr. Lewis on the second floor, Vietnam veteran. Heart condition, Mrs. Patel widow, raising 2 grandkids alone. The Flores family, 3 generations and 2 apartments. To Sabrina and Apex, they were obstacles. To me, they were home. I stepped back before she noticed me, heart pounding. My phone buzzed, a building group chat message from Mrs. Patel. "Sabrina just told me my new rent will be $6,800. Is this real?" More messages followed. The Tremblays, $9,400. The Evertons, $7,900. Even the retirees, $5,200. That's when I pieced it together. The rent increases weren't random. They were a carpet bomb. Push everyone out. Drive occupancy below 50%. Sell the building to Apex for millions. Split the profits. And I was supposed to stand by quietly while she erased the only real community I'd ever known. Not anymore. If they wanted a war for Blakewood Apartments, they had just declared it. When Sabrina declared war on the tenants, I thought things couldn't get worse. I was wrong, because what I uncovered next didn't just shake me, it rewrote my entire understanding of my family. It started with a small, rusted key. I found it tucked inside the last box of my grandmother Edith's belongings, which had been gathering dust in my storage closet since her funeral. Attached was a brittle note written in her elegant cursive, "From Marion. When you need answers." My chest tightened. Grandma Edith had been the only one in the family who treated me like a human being instead of a burden. She loved Blakewood Apartments not as an investment, but as a community she protected fiercely. I followed the key to the old basement storage room, her former office. Dust coated everything, and a faint smell of lavender still lingered behind a loose panel. I found a hidden little LOCKBOX inside were property deeds, contracts, letters, tax. Filings in a binder labeled Summit Ivy Holdings, private. My hands shook as I flipped through the documents. Summit Ivy Holdings wasn't a random LLC. It was an ownership company created 3 years before. Grandma Edith died, and the sole owner was listed as Marion Blake, not Sabrina. Not my parents. Asterisk not. The family trust. Me. I stared at the documents until the words blurred. Grandma. Edith had transferred full ownership of Blakewood Apartments into a private LLC under my name, and no one knew. This wasn't an inheritance. It was a shield. Safeguard against the exact kind of greed Sabrina now wielded like a blade. There was more. Letters Edith had written but never mailed to me. I see what they're doing to you. Sabrina has plans you don't know about. When the time comes, you must protect these people. And taped to the last page, a notarized amendment stating that if anyone attempted to force a sale or evict tenants for profit, managerial control automatically reverted to me. My breath left my lungs. Sabrina wasn't the landlord. I was. And suddenly, their entire plan began to crumble. They thought I was powerless, but Grandma Edith had already placed the real power in my hands. The question now was, what would I do with it? With the truth about ownership burning in my hands, I knew I needed help, and there was only one person Grandma Edith would have trusted. Ruth Holloway. Her best friend. The woman who had sat beside Edith through every board meeting, every renovation, every fight to protect the tenants. When I showed Ruth the documents, she didn't look surprised. She looked relieved. Oh, thank God, she whispered. Edith knew this day would come. And then she opened a drawer and pulled out another file, thick, bulging, marked in red ink, for Marion when they turned predatory. Inside was the rest of the nightmare, invoice statements with forged signatures, checks written to non-existent maintenance companies, payment orders routed through undisclosed accounts, and the worst part, a spreadsheet showing $92,400. Missing from the building fund over 6 years. All approved by Sabrina. All hidden from my parents. All disguised as capital improvements that never happened. Ruth tapped one page. See these vendor names? Shell companies. All created by Sabrina. She was siphoning money from Blakewood long before she tried to sell it. A chill crawled up my spine. Even the repairs I'd begged the family to approve, new boilers. Emergency plumbing had been delayed because Sabrina had already drained the budget dry. She planned it in phases. Ruth continued. Phase 1, bleed the building funds. Phase 2, inflate rent so tenants leave. Phase 3, sell to Apex for millions. Phase 4, move the money offshore. Every piece snapped into place with sickening clarity. This wasn't just greed. This was organized fraud. Sabrina didn't just underestimate me. She underestimated the woman who raised me, Grandma. Edith had built a paper trail so thorough, so bulletproof, that it could bury Sabrina's entire plan in one meeting. And suddenly, I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready. If the documents Ruth and I uncovered were the fuse, Sabrina was the one who struck the match herself. I just didn't expect her to be so reckless about it. 2 days after discovering the fraud network, I attended a mandatory family meeting at my parents' house. The atmosphere was stiff, suffocating, and full of Sabrina's favorite perfume. Victory. She was already seated at the dining table, laptop open, nails clicking like she was signing execution orders. Finally, she said when I entered, we need to discuss clearing the building. Clearing. As if human beings were clutter on a shelf. My jaw clenched. You mean evicting everyone so you can sell Blakewood to Apex? Her smile sharpened. I knew you'd understand once you cooled off. Dad cleared his throat. Sweetheart, your sister is right. It's time to modernize. This is good business. It's exploitation, I snapped. And it's illegal. Sabrina waved her hand dismissively. Don't be dramatic. People move all the time. We just need to encourage them. Encourage. I repeated, how? She leaned back, crossing her arms. Easy. We fail the boilers on inspection day. Say we found mold on floors 2 and 3. Maybe call the city and file a complaint about unsafe conditions. After that, tenants panic. Move out. Problem solved. My skin went cold. She wasn't just greedy. She was willing to weaponize codes and laws, things she knew as an attorney against innocent families. And if they don't leave? I asked. She shrugged, sipping her drink. Then we raise rent again. Or make repairs. Inconvenient. Honestly, Marion, if they can't afford it, they shouldn't live there. Dad and Mom nodded along like this was a perfectly reasonable position. I stared at them, wondering if they even realized how far Sabrina had fallen. Or how far they had followed her. Then Sabrina made her fatal mistake. She tapped her laptop and said, I've already coordinated with Apex. We just need occupancy down to 45%. She clicked again. A recorded Zoom call popped up on her screen. She didn't realize her Bluetooth speaker had automatically sensed and begun playing the audio aloud. Apex executive's voice. Once you clear out the low-income renters, we'll finalize the acquisition. Sabrina's voice. Don't worry. A little fear goes a long way. I'll stage something, maybe bed bugs or an electrical hazard. They'll leave. My stomach dropped. She kept talking. And as for my sister, Marion's too naive to fight me. She'd do what she's told. Her arrogance had swallowed her whole. Mom gasped. Dad looked horrified, but not horrified enough. And me? I quietly pressed the record button on my phone. Sabrina finally noticed the audio playing and slammed her laptop shut, face flashing with panic. You didn't hear anything, she snapped. That was taken out of context. No, I said calmly. I heard everything. And so will everyone else. She froze. Marion, Dad warned. We handle family issues privately. Fraud isn't a family issue, I said. It's a felony. Sabrina's voice cracked into a snarl. You wouldn't dare. I stared straight into her eyes. I would. And I will. Because for the first time, I wasn't the scared little sister. I was the owner. And Sabrina had just destroyed herself with her own words. Sabrina thought she controlled the narrative. She thought she controlled me. But she forgot one thing. I had the truth. And I had the building. I scheduled a tenant update meeting for Saturday afternoon in the Blakewood community room. I didn't tell Sabrina, my parents, or anyone connected to them, but I did call Ruth Attorney Howard Wilkes, Edith's estate lawyer, representative from the City Housing Authority, and 2 members of the state attorney's office specializing in landlord fraud. By 2 p.m., the room was packed wall-to-wall. Families, retirees, single parents, immigrants, veterans, all of them terrified they'd lose their homes. I stepped to the front. Thank you for coming, I began, voice shaking. Today, everything changes. Before I could continue, the door slammed open. Sabrina stormed in, heels cracking like gunshots against the tile. My parents trailed behind her. What is this? She demanded. Marion, you don't have the authority to call a building meeting without me. I breathed and slowly got time to end this. I do have the authority, I said. In fact, I'm the only one who does. Confusion rippled across the tenants. Sabrina scoffed. Don't embarrass yourself. Howard stepped forward and set a thick binder on the table. This, he announced, is the ownership record for Blakewood Apartments. Edith Carter Blake transferred full ownership to an LG Summit Ivy Holdings 3 years before her passing. Murmurs spread. Sabrina went pale. Howard continued. The sole owner of Summit Ivy Holdings is, he turned to me, Marion Blake. Gasps exploded across the room. Sabrina sputtered. That's impossible. Mom she didn't trust you. I cut in. She trusted me. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. And this is what you've been doing behind everyone's backs. I played the recording. Sabrina's voice filled the room. We'll fake mold. Maybe bed bugs. A little fear goes a long way. We just need occupancy below 45%. Marion's too naive to fight. Shock, anger, disgust. Mrs. Patel started crying. Mr. Lewis clenched his walker until his knuckles whitened. The state attorney's investigators stepped forward. Sabrina Blake, one said, we need to speak with you about allegations of housing fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. My parents turned to Sabrina, horrified. Please, my mother whispered. Tell me this isn't true. But Sabrina said nothing. Her jaw locked, her eyes burning with hate, not remorse. You did this? She hissed at me. No, I replied. You did this to yourself? 2 officers escorted her out as the room buzzed with a mix of relief, shock, and applause. I turned back to the tenants. Blakewood isn't for sale, I said. Not now. Not ever. And for the first time in months, hope returned to the building. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not in temperature and atmosphere. Everyone present could feel it. This wasn't just a trial. It was the unraveling of an entire illusion my family had built. Sabrina arrived flanked by 2 expensive lawyers, her hair perfect, her expression defiant. My parents sat behind her, trembling between shame and denial. I took my seat in the witness area beside Attorney Howard and the state prosecutor. Case 218473, the judge called. State of Oregon versus Sabrina Blake. The list of charges alone sent ripples through the courtroom. Embezzlement, fraud, forgery, elder abuse, conspiracy to commit unlawful evictions, attempted fraudulent sale of residential property, misuse of legal credentials. For personal gain, Sabrina's jaw tightened with each count read. Aloud, the prosecution began by presenting the paper trail Ruth, Howard, and I had assembled. Every forged invoice, every shell company, every suspicious transfer that ended in Sabrina's personal account. Then came the audio recordings, when Sabrina's voice echoed through the room. Fake mold. That bugs. A little fear goes a long way. The judge's eyebrows shot upward so sharply the entire gallery murmured. Sabrina's attorney objected, sputtering something about taken out of context. The judge cut him off. Counselor, unless there's a context where threatening to fabricate health hazards is appropriate. Your objection is denied. Next, the tenants testified one by one. Mr. Lewis spoke about Sabrina ignoring repeated maintenance requests. Mrs. Patel described being told her family didn't belong here. The Tremblay brothers detailed the $9,400 rent hike. Then it was my turn. I walked to the stand, my hands steady for the first time in weeks. Tell the court, the prosecutor said gently, how you discovered the fraud. I explained everything. The lockbox, Edith's documents, the LLC, the secret ownership, the rental hikes, the recording. Sabrina glared at me like she wanted to set me on fire. When her lawyer cross-examined me, he made a fatal mistake. Miss Blake, isn't it true you're only accusing your sister because you resent her success? I smiled slightly. Success doesn't require destroying lives. Greed does. A soft wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. Even the judge didn't hide a flicker of approval. Finally, the prosecution presented the final piece, A burned email backup showing Sabrina calling Grandma Edith, a stubborn old relic who needs to die so we can move forward. My mother gasped. My father closed his eyes. Asterisk Sabrina's face went white when closing arguments ended. The judge wasted no time. Given the overwhelming evidence, he said, this court finds the defendant guilty on all counts. Sabrina dropped into her chair. Stunned. Justice wasn't just served. It was undeniable. The courtroom fell utterly silent as everyone waited for the judge's ruling. Even Sabrina, who had worn arrogance like armor for months, now sat frozen, her confidence shattered. Her breathing shallow. Judge Hernandez removed her glasses, folded her hands, and spoke with the kind of calm that cut deeper than shouting. Double quotes, Miss Sabrina Blake. She began. Your actions reflect a deliberate pattern of deception, greed, and exploitation. You used your legal knowledge to harm vulnerable families, defraud your dying grandmother, and manipulate your own sibling. Each word landed like a blow. Sabrina flinched, but said nothing. The evidence presented, the judge continued, shows not a single lapse in judgment, but a multi-year scheme intended to enrich yourself at the expense of others. This court cannot and will not overlook that. She lifted the sentencing report. On the charge of embezzlement, guilty. On the charge of fraud, guilty. On the charge of forged documents, guilty. On the charge of elder abuse, guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit unlawful eviction, guilty. Gasps erupted through the gallery. My mother covered her mouth. My father stared at the floor. Sabrina's eyes widened in horror as the judge delivered the final blow. Therefore, this court sentences you to 10 years in state prison. With eligibility for parole after 7, you will also pay $92,000 restitution to Maple Glen Apartments and face permanent disbarment from the practice of law. Sabrina stood, voice shaking. You can't do this. I did this for the family. The judge's gaze hardened. You did this for yourself. 2 officers stepped forward, handcuffs clicking around Sabrina's wrists. Her panic-filled eyes darted toward me, blaming, pleading. Furious all at once, but I didn't look away. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. Because justice isn't triumph. Its truth finally spoken aloud. And today. The truth was undeniable. When the courtroom finally emptied, I found myself standing alone in the quiet corridor, away from reporters, away from relatives who didn't know whether to pity me or resent me. Justice had been served, yes, but the cost of it felt heavy in my chest. Howard joined me moments later, carrying a slim folder. You don't have to decide today, he said gently, but the offers are real. You could sell Maple Glen for $12 million tomorrow. $12 million. A number that could rewrite anyone's life. And for a moment, I imagined it, a house overlooking the coast, travel, freedom, a future with no financial fear. But then, I imagined something else, Colon Mrs. Rodriguez in her warm, cozy corner of 3C, the NWN children laughing in the courtyard, old Mr. Petrov teaching chess on Saturday mornings, the ivy-covered east wall, Grandma Edith's pride glowing in the afternoon sun. Money could buy many things, but it couldn't buy that. Not the community my grandmother built. Not the sense of safety the residents felt. Not the stability so many families fought their whole lives for. I looked at Howard. I'm not selling. I won't let Maple Glen turn into another luxury shell that pushes people out. He nodded as if he already knew my answer. So, what happens now? He asked. I opened the folder he'd brought, papers for transferring Maple Glen into a community land trust, ensuring permanent affordability. No developer could ever take it. No greedy relative could ever touch it. Not even I could profit from it. This, I said, signing my name with Grandma's fountain pen, is our legacy. And in that moment I knew Sabrina had chased millions and lost everything. I was choosing something stronger, a legacy that would outlive us all. The evening after, I signed Maple Glen into the Community Land Trust. The residents gathered in the courtyard under strings of warm lights. Children ran between picnic tables, neighbors shared homemade dishes, and laughter echoed up the brick walls. It felt like a celebration, not a victory, but of safety, of belonging. Ruth hugged me first. Your grandmother would be proud. You didn't just save a building, you saved a home. One by one, residents came up to thank me. A quiet thank you from Mrs. Rodriguez, a shy hug from Lily Nubune, a handshake from Mr. Petrov, who never smiled but somehow smiled tonight. These were the people who stood by me when my own blood didn't. These were the ones who testified, who refused to leave, who believed in the promise of Maple Glen. This was family. Later, as the courtyard emptied and the lights dimmed, my parents approached hesitantly. My mother's eyes were red. We were wrong, she whispered. About Sabrina. About you. About everything. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel anger. Only a tired sort of peace. You can try again, I said softly. But trust is rebuilt slowly. They nodded, accepting the truth they had earned out as they left. I stood beneath the ivy Grandma loved so much, its leaves rustling gently in the night breeze. Sabrina had tried to weaponize greed. She tried to turn home into profit. She had lost everything chasing money, and me. I have found something money couldn't buy: a community, a purpose, a family of choice. That was the real revenge, not destroying Sabrina, but proving that her values were never the ones that mattered. Not winning millions, but protecting what truly made life rich. Final message, lesson for the listener sometimes: the greatest revenge isn't punishment, it's choosing a better path than the one others tried to force on you. Homes matter more than profits. People matter more than power. And true family isn't always the one you're born with, it's the one that stands with you. When everything falls apart, do the right thing, even when it costs you. Because justice isn't always loud, but it lasts.